you doing?
I'm doing great, Mr. King.
I can't complain. It's busy. It's
Yeah.
definitely sledding uphill some days with lenders, but all in all, it's busy, and I've been waiting for that for a while. So
Yeah, likewise. I really noticed this last couple of weeks with offers being on the table, a lot of investors starting to go, okay, the market's good, like it's kind of hitting the bottom where like we're going to get some good deals if we look for them. Now's the time. But I'm also seeing, some people that are ready to get their house on the market. The sun is shining, the snow is gone for the most part, and the street cleaners actually came out my street a couple days ago on the weekend, and it's all of a sudden I was like, I better go do my yard work. I just felt obligated.
no, I get you.
So
So
good time of year.
no, 100%. It's my favorite time of year, spring, because you get to look forward to all spring, all summer, all fall. Then you get hit with that Albertan winter. But I've been hearing rumors that there's an unusual number of deals crashing on the MLS that are going pending and then collapsing. You've heard of this?
It's an interesting scenario. So if I backtrack just a touch here, Keaton, and say, a lot of people are saying, how do you know if a deal is falling apart? Well, it used to be that we just had to conversate with other realtors and find out, have you had any deals on the table that haven't come together? But last year there was actual change in our regulations at the local board level, where now if a property is accepted an offer, the seller can choose to either put it on as a pending offer, so there's a pending offer in play, or they could say we're going to leave it active, but in the comments they must put that there's an accepted offer on the table. So having said that, that change seems to really have made a difference for us to be able to monitor the market, to be able to say, hey, there's 12 properties in your neighborhood, but these two are pending. So we can kind of now gauge in a visual sense which properties are moving and which ones are sitting. So that was interesting just to kind of see that rule change last year, because it actually does give us a bit better of a pulse too. It won't show up like that on realtor.ca, mind you, but it does show up on our end that way. So now back to today. So this whole idea, like, okay, well, you know what? There's a couple houses that went pending this week. Oh, wait a minute. Those ones are active again. They actually get flipped back to active when the buyers pull out on the deal. So, in chatting with a few of my colleagues and just seeing some of the forums that we all have in the private background there, it's interesting to see a couple of different things. But a couple of personal ones that I can see happening is some people are buying houses that need more repairs than they're expecting. They're expecting the HG television, great quality. They do the home inspection, and go, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff here. I don't think we can change the price. We just need to cancel the deal. So, that's inevitable when people rush into things. So that's, I know, part of it. Another part is I'm hearing lenders saying it's taking longer to get an approval, but it's realtors that are saying to their client, let's go shop. We'll just submit the approval. It's only a pre-approval. It's not really checking everything anyway. And you have to get CMHC approval. So we'll just do the bulk of it. We'll ask for 2 or 3 weeks for conditions. Unfortunately, those are the ones that I'm getting wind of that are the ones that are not working. People are just not doing their homework from what I can see on our end. And that's really unfortunate for two people, right? It's unfortunate for the seller for sure. They have to remarket their home. But think about the buyer side of this things. I'd hate to be in a situation where I'm working with my clients looking for a home to buy. They get excited about a property. They're really like, this is the one. And then they have these hurdles if that was to happen, and they don't now get to buy the house for whatever reason. It's just like crushing. Like they're so disappointed. How do we move forward from this? You've allowed your client to go down that path of emotional excitement and then drain, and it just isn't right. So I'm really glad that you and I, and many other colleagues understand the benefits of doing that pre-approval. That's actually submitting all the paperwork, getting
Yeah.
everything done. And I think that's one of the great relationships that it's really nice to have that with you, Keaton, and with other colleagues to see people take the time to do that. It's unreal to me to see that, what, to get people up excited like that, to see that they have to cancel the deal. It just doesn't help anybody. So,
No, 100%. I've been doing this 8 years, and very, very early on in the industry, we came to the conclusion that we will never help a client write an offer if they're not prepared and ready to go, because even back 7 years ago, the industry was getting tighter and there just
mhm.
wasn't the flexibility to make things work. And as time has gone on, there's been more and more changes. It's getting stricter and stricter. And it's no longer at the point where you can shape the deal around the client. You almost have to shape the client around the financing. So we need
Right.
time to be able to go through things, identify challenges, make sure we know exactly which lender it's going to go to, which requires different documentation.
Hmm.
And we do all of our screening ahead of time, and it makes things far more successful. Before we went on air, I was mentioning to Chris that I think it's been close to 100 files since we've had a client get outright declined that
Hmm.
we didn't expect. There's occasionally we'll make a judgment call, we'll chat with a client and say, you know what, we're going to throw the Hail Mary. We think 70% your file is going to get declined, but we also see 30% we can argue this and we'll hopefully get it.
Yeah.
That's a calculated decision. And, it sucks for the seller on the other side, but there's a reason there's condition to finance in a lot of deals.
Yeah.
But sadly, the banking system is an example, get pre-qualified in 60 seconds or whatever. A bunch of numbers on a napkin have no reality with the way the lending system works. Just because you make $200,000 a year doesn't mean the bank will use $200,000 a year.
Hmm.
And that's where our job comes in. And for
Yeah.
better or worse, the harder the industry's gotten, the busier we've gotten. And that's just
Yeah.
because we kind of, instead of lamenting over it and writing Facebook posts about how the lending system's stupid, we just figure out what is the new best. How can we push things forward? How can we get deals done?
Yeah.
And what variables or levers can we pull to make sure our clients will be successful?
Yeah.
A lot of
Absolutely.
people just like to throw it at the wall and then gripe when it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point, Keaton. I mean, technology has made our jobs a little bit more efficient, but there's nothing like the planning stage and the face to face and getting people to a position of power and leverage to say we know you're making a decision in the right system and the right process, just so that we don't have those hiccups. Like, let's face it, how many people do you know here locally and of course in Alberta in general are self-employed? I mean, it's nuts how many people I know are just working for themselves. These are the people that have the challenge. They have on paper, they have great gross revenues. They, many times have very little debt, but the bank goes, yeah, but that's not your money. So
No, I
it's an
agree.
interesting dynamic. Hmm.
I definitely think too, like you need to have your financing, say broker and your realtor working together. As an example, if Chris and I are working together on a client and the client has potentially flimsy financing, they're 12 months on contract, their hours aren't guaranteed, we need multiple major exceptions to use their income. The first time we write an offer, I'm personally going to have a conversation with Chris and say, Chris, I want to talk to our clients and I want to say, don't worry about negotiating on the price. We're 30% chance we're going to get financing approved. The
Yeah.
clients know their challenges. Let's chat with them. Let's write an offer at full ask. Let's just get pending so we have a live deal so we can get the lender to look at it. If they
Hmm.
approve the financing, then let's negotiate.
Hmm.
If the seller and the buyer can't come to terms, okay, we've wasted everyone's time a little bit, but now we know that 30% chance is going to pay off. On future deals, we can now negotiate the way we want before we get an offer pending. Rather than you go through 15 open houses, you're grinding the seller. You finally get the magic ticket. They've agreed reluctantly to the price you want. And
Yeah.
then we need an extension maybe. Well, if you've ground them on the price, they're not giving you any extra time.
Hmm.
Or if you get declined, now they're pissed off because you went through all this emotional turmoil to come
Yeah.
to a final value for your offer that they begrudgingly accepted, and your clients get declined. So I think that it's important that how you operate reflects the strength of your position. If
Hmm.
you're 99.9% you're going to get that financing, okay, fair enough to negotiate. Personally,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm a little biased, I still like the subject removal waiver with the price amendment. I think
Yeah.
that that's your strongest point in the negotiating process. Hey, Chris, here's our cash offer now where we're waiving conditions. Oh, by the way, we had to make a slight adjustment on price because of the roof and the furnace. You
Hmm.
may be pissed off as a selling agent, but ultimately you're going to take it to your clients. You go, guys, like this is a cash offer. If we accept this, we're done. Your house is sold.
Yeah.
It's a high point of the seller might be like, I just want to get this done
Yeah.
versus you're bringing an offer to your clients trying to sell. And it's like, hey, Johnny
Hmm.
and Susie, yeah, they offered 470. I know you want 500, but yeah, and no, if you do accept this, then we're going to wait a week and they're going to inspect the home and do an appraisal. And if everything goes well, then they'll buy your house. The sellers are going to say pound sand.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? And so, a good couple examples. I mean, we had a situation this last week where someone wanted to buy a condo that we have listed. And of course, they were 5% down. So very difficult to get a pre-approval on a condo that's, in that situation as well, because all buildings have their issues as well. So if they can't get a mortgage insurer to back them and to back the property, their financing might be good, but at the same time, those are tough ones. Then, fast forward to a different situation, dealing with an offer just yesterday, and there happened to be a gentleman and his client writing an offer on one of our listings that we had just received an offer, and they wanted to say, well, hey, we can give you an offer too, but of course I can't share the details of the first offer. And in that situation, they came in and they, believe it or not, they wanted 4 weeks, Keaton, for their condition of financing.
This is
They
a
I
commercial
was
deal.
no. So I was looking at this guy. Okay, here's an offer. They have 5 days. Their financing is good to go. They know they don't need much time. They got to run it through the bank, whatever they're doing there. The property inspection is quick. You have a 5 day offer and you have a 4 week conditional offer. Which one would you take if you were the owner? Right. And so that's really interesting, just to help buyers negotiate a better deal and to negotiate the win. Like, you get the house you want, is to have that power and to not find out that, you're going to find out bad news after, 3-4 weeks of waiting around to try and get this done. It's just an interesting dynamic to see that happening.
Well, I also
Now,
find that sometimes it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. You got to know, it's like
yeah.
playing poker, and you got to know who's got a hand at the table, and
Mm-hmm.
how you play your game is going to base on who else is there. It's a
Yeah.
very different process directly with a seller and nobody else involved.
Yes.
The moment there's
Mm-hmm.
competition, you might play a stronger hand than you actually have a bluff. And
Mm-hmm.
based on your strategy with your realtor and your financing, sometimes, we'll go in with 3 days for financing, knowing full well it's not going to happen, but we're going to get our toe in the door. Then we're going to ask for those extra 2 days. And
Yeah.
I think that's not always right. Some realtors will be okay with it, some won't. But I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important you have these conversations, because there's a lot you can do the moment you get creative.
Yeah. Well, and like you say there, whether you're doing something intentionally or whether you're saying, hey, we're going to push really hard, I think really what both parties want to know is you have a goal to do it as quickly as possible. And I think, someone indicating, hey, if they can't pull this out in 4 or 5 days, so be it. But we knew that they were going to give it every best effort to do that. Whereas another situation is, let's ask for 4 weeks. Well, what are the chances a seller's going to say yes to that? So,
Well,
that's a
anyone
tough.
experienced knows it doesn't take 4 weeks unless you're unprepared, you've got a really weak file, or there's some major issue like you're out of the country,
Right.
which,
Yeah. Yeah.
it almost
Totally.
screams to
Now,
me a wholesaler. They want 4 weeks so they can tie it up and then they can sell it to someone else.
that's right.
But
That's right. And then, at the same time, though, just some fascinating stuff out there. Seeing deals fall apart, going from active back to pending. I do want to bring up here that an interesting dynamic in this kind of market that I've seen over the years, Keaton, is backup offers. So we're starting to see people, what? We asked for 10 days, and you know what? It's pending for 2 more days. Hey, my clients like the property. Well, let's write an offer. There's going to be a clause in there that says the seller can only take this offer if the first one doesn't finish in the next 2 days. But let's say that happens. Now the seller's in a position where whether they like your offer better or the same, they're not allowed to give that first party more time. So that's a catch 22, right? You could be in harm's way if you don't ask for enough time, because you might lose the house anyway. But what a great tool for, to see that that's happening a little bit here for my buyers, my clientele, to be able to maybe consider backup offers again, because these deals are not written in stone. Sometimes they do come apart. So
no,
that's an
for
interesting
sure.
dynamic in the market.
I also like 24-hour bump clauses. I find they're very useful if you do get a long condition waiver offer and you're like, well, one in the hand, two in the bush, you're debating if it's worth. If it's a really, like, let's say it's the 4 week offer, you could always go back and say, fine, we're going to accept it, but we'll have a 24-hour bump clause, which means we'll stay on the market. If someone else comes and writes an offer, we can give you a 24-hour do or die.
Yeah.
And there's so much you can do. The problem is
Mhm.
that I don't want to pick on realtors because it's the same in the broker world, but the licensing does not teach you how to do your job. So
No,
then you
negotiate.
learn through a pseudo mentorship, which some people get in, some don't. But
Mhm.
like any industry, there's the good, there's the bad, and there's the ugly. And the odds that the realtor you're working with was trained by someone really, really good, well, statistically, it's incredibly low. I don't know the Edmonton stats, but in Vancouver, there's close to 18,000 agents and nearly 10,000 do zero transactions a year. So
Mhm. Mhm.
odds are the random person you found online probably isn't one of the best. and certainly
Right.
not one of the most creative. Because the challenge is a lot of the best, they do a lot of business, but they turn into a factory. Easy
Yep.
in, easy out, easy in, easy out. You know,
Hmm.
um, so I think it's an interesting approach, but I've definitely noticed in the lending side that financing has tightened up,
Yep.
and that we are seeing there seems to be a push. We're speculating from the CRA or from OSFI to really be pushing for proof of taxes filed lately. We've noticed a
Right.
huge uptick that lenders are fighting us on 2022 NOAs or notice of assessments. We're like, they're not even due yet. And they're like, we don't
Right.
care. Hold the bus. And then we
Yep.
go, well, the CRA is on strike. And they go, we don't care.
Really.
So
And see, that's
it's,
such a different dynamic. Like, how do you hold up somebody's life because they're required to maybe hand in something that is not even, accomplished yet.
you move
That's
the
really not
closing
fair to the
date
consumer.
out. You have to take calculated risks. And that's why I'm a believer that, kind of like the saying, the early bird gets the worm. If you think whether you're an investor or a home buyer or a seller, the more you can do sooner, the better. Whether it's fixing up your home to sell, it's getting your taxes filed the day you can submit. If you are proactive, you now may be in a position. Let's say that the industry keeps tightening. You need to have 2022 taxes filed to buy a home. That's going to eliminate a certain percentage of buyers that are going to be sitting around waiting for the CRA strike to resolve. If you were
Yep.
prepared, you may find yourself able to act in a window of opportunity where others can't.
Yep.
And I think for investors, for homeowners, for sellers, for business people, realtors, brokers, everyone, just life is easier when you get to things as quick as you can. And I say this as I've struggled with this my whole life, so I'm by no means preaching. It's just something I've observed from the successful people that I try to surround myself with.
Right. Well, and you bring up a good point in doing the financing applications and understanding your own personal financial situation and, running a business and then having personal income taxes and or two separate files now. That's actually been a really helpful thing for our own family. Whereas we have to be so organized with the business that our stuff is always up to date in terms of the filing system because of the fact that we have to seemingly keep track every month of all of our finances for the work. So then our personal is like, okay, well, you've already filed all the corporate stuff. So your personal is like, what other potential family discounts do you get or write offs do you get? Because the rest of it's already done. So I found that, running your own business, although you don't show on paper you make as much money, it's interesting how that does keep me on my toes. I'm always filing something.
Personal
So,
tax returns are a lot less stressful when you have to deal with a corporate structure as well.
well, that's
Like
true.
I
Yeah,
only
it's
need to give the
too.
T4 and the T5 and my RSP contributions. Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
The other thing though is that,
Mhm.
and this I see this of my incorporated clients, almost always if you're incorporated, you have to work with. You don't have to, but you almost always will work with an accountant. You leverage
Right.
professionals for their expertise.
Yeah.
I believe that that's a big reason why all of a sudden your personal tax returns seem easier because you're like, what's $200 to get the accountant to do my personal tax returns too? You let the
Yep.
professional do what they're good at. You then worry
Hmm.
about living your life.
Yep.
And I think that this is a parallel for insurance, for buying a home, selling a home, financing. You pick it, investments. If you find the right professionals, they will make your life easier, save you time, energy, and money. Even if they come with a cost, their value will bring, an example, accountants. They're going to
Yep.
save you tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. The
Hmm.
problem is you just don't know when. So if you don't have that relationship, they're not there to be like, oh, we'll actually file the form 72-6 or whatever it is, and we can structure it this way, and all of a sudden your spouse will get a credit and whatever it may be. Um,
Hmm.
but long story short, everybody, please be proactive. Please don't be writing offers if you don't have your stuff together because I've had 3 deals this week come to me out of the blue where clients were not ready to go. Hey, I know we haven't talked in 6 months, but I've got an offer. Excited to work with you. And I'm just like, don't get me wrong, very appreciative of their business, happy to work with them, but it is 10 times as difficult for us to do things well when you
Yep.
show up with an accepted offer. We'll still do our best, but I
Yep.
want my clients to have a good experience. I want to put out a good presence of our business. The last thing I want to do is the buying agent's like, Chris calls me up, Keaton, what's going on? It's the day of subject removal. You don't have anything? Well, I don't want to have to throw the client under the bus and say, well, hey, they showed up 3 days ago with a contract in their hands, and you, Mr. Realtor, should have called me first. You
Yep.
should have been pushing them to be ready. But I'm a professional. I'm going to shut up and say, I'm really sorry, Chris. We're going to get it done.
Yep.
But it reflects on us, and it kind of sucks because,
Yep.
Chris, realtors are not very forgiving in many times. If there's not accountability, then next. And I
Yeah.
think it's good because your job is to protect your clients, but sometimes we don't even get to defend ourselves because of confidentiality.
Right, right. Oh, and you like it's such a big circle. But just as a proactive approach, like you said, instead of being reactive, I'm sitting down today discussing a mutual client, somebody who's going to be using your services, Keaton. And hey, you know what? We're going to start looking at homes in a couple weeks. So the application to get all the updated information into you before we even start looking at homes is already the discussion on the table. We're already having the conversation. Okay, so when we know that you're ready to write an offer, well, we haven't even started looking at houses yet, but we're already talking about what needs to be done when the offer's on the table. It's just so much of a smoother, less stressful scenario. And I think a lot of people say that, why use a professional realtor? I can go look for a house myself. Why use a mortgage broker? I can just walk to my bank. I think when it comes down to it, is to be this proactive and to have these processes laid out. Our jobs become more about showing you how less stressful this is, but how exciting this process can be, because the hiccups and the scary parts are already preemptively dealt with. Now it's like, let's go have some fun. Let's find you that home.
Well,
And
I
let's
view
face
it,
it, it's not always fun. So,
it's almost like kayaking. You can drive up a mountain and go buy a kayak at Costco and get your life jacket and your helmet. You can throw yourself in the river and see what happens. But are you going to be focused on, holy shit, I'm going to die? Or are you going to be focused on, wow, this is an amazing experience? Whereas if you do it with a guide, someone who's done it 1,000 times and is a professional and not only trained to do it, but trained to help you do it safely,
yeah.
you get to focus on making sure you're making the right decisions, you're having a good time, and that it's a good experience rather than, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. But it's always a pleasure,
And
Chris.
yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, you can't be proactive enough to cover everything, but you know what? It makes the journey so much smoother.
No, absolutely. Well, always a pleasure and look forward to seeing you next week. And 20 minutes flew by.
Absolutely. Looking forward to helping some more happy clients together this next week.
Always a pleasure. Cheers.
Great. Thanks.